So this conversation is recorded in the car. I'm on my way to go see my mom and my sister for some dinner. It's Christmas Eve. And what I would like to share with you is more than $10 million of revenue worth of experience on my drive. And I'll mind map this later on. Right now, I'm not mind mapping it in the car. I'm having a conversation while my attention is on the road, so I'll rarely look at the camera. $10 million worth of revenue generated in my entrepreneurial endeavors since 2009. I've been an entrepreneur for 16 years. And also many millions of dollars generated for my clients. I had an IT business from 2009 to 13. After that, I started another YouTube channel, not this one here, but another one which I built to 400,000 subscribers plus organically. I started that in 2013, and also a consulting practice, which I started in 2013, which is what I would like to discuss with you today. Components from my consulting practice, or how I consult with entrepreneurs. So this is an action-packed video, all based on personal experience and spoken cohesively to relate harmoniously with generating a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit through entrepreneurship. So I trust you'll enjoy and benefit greatly. Now, when I built my IT business, I learned that segmenting entrepreneurship in the following ways is very helpful. Innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, and leadership. 6 categories. Innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, and leadership. Now, part of this comes from my corporate background. I did 10 years in corporate IT, but I didn't just do corporate IT. I was involved with some projects that had parallels with management consulting and also planning out infrastructure in a way that is related to operation processes. So I have a lot of experience in creating structure. Now, what I found in my IT business is if I segment entrepreneurship is as follows. Again, innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, and leadership. Not only can I focus on these areas to grow my business, it also encapsulates the broad spectrum of different initiatives that goes on within a business. And then in 2013, I thought, you know what? I could teach this. I could translate this over to business consulting. Because not only did I have the 10 years corporate experience, but I built my IT business to success from 2009 to 13. And I found that I was no longer interested in performing IT services. What I was interested in doing was business consulting based on my personal experience. Now, not only did I acquire more experience since I became a business consultant, not only did I teach and facilitate based on my own personal experience since 2013 as a consultant, as a trainer, as a coach, as a facilitator in many different ways. I also generated more millions of dollars. And this time, not just for myself and my partners that I was involved with in IT, but also for my clients. So I got to see this stuff, how it works in thousands of different industries, thousands of different businesses. I've seen so many business models. I've seen many ways that business go about their innovation, their sales, their marketing, their operations, their finance, their leadership. And this video, if we talked about this, we may consider a longer road trip down to Florida or something like that, all the way from Blue Mountains, Ontario, where I live. We would be able to fill up the entire drive with information based on personal experience and still be open to making a part 2 or part 3, part 2 on the drive back and part 3 on another road trip. That's how much experience and how much things I've seen in entrepreneurship in 16 years. Now, the thing about me is I'm very committed to my vision. So not only was I involved with entrepreneurship, I was involved with it pretty much from morning till night. So from the moment that I wake up till I pretty much go to sleep, and also on the weekends, I would be interacting with entrepreneurs. My friends were entrepreneurs. A number of my ex-girlfriends were entrepreneurs. My business partners, people that I would communicate with, people on my channel, my clients, etc. We would always be discussing things from the lens of innovation, sales, operations, finance, leadership. So what do I mean by these categories? Innovation is any invention that you come up with as an entrepreneur, and I group it under innovation, or anything that you innovate. Existing products and services that you modify in a way that makes it better is what I call innovation. So as an entrepreneur, you're inventing and you're innovating. A portion of my time every week, and it's been this way since 2009 when I started my IT business, is dedicated to invention and innovation. A portion of my time. Now, how much portion of your time? The answer is depends. Some might prefer more, some might prefer less. The answer is depends. Now, the way I innovate personally is I look at my existing projects, what I'm involved with, my clients' pains, needs, desires, frustrations. I look at the conversations that I have with entrepreneurs, the conversations that I have with business, the conversations that I have with team members, the conversations that I have with myself, business partner, joint venture, referral partners, etc., about what's going on in my business as well. And then I find creative solutions. They could be product-based, they could be service-based, they could be a combination of product, service-based, they could be done-for-you services that I could offer. They could be done with you or done by you, training programs, for example. And I come up with these solutions and I offer them. And provided that people want to pay for them, that turns into money. That turns into revenue. Now that's one of the ways that I come up with new invention and innovation. Another way I come up with invention and innovation is I look at whatever kind of problems, which is similar, essentially. I look at whatever kind of problems or opportunities, which are opportunities. Problems are opportunities. Problems that I have in day-to-day life. And because I grew up with computers, the problems generally tend to be with computers or technology. And then what I would do is I would come up with whatever kind of solutions. And people would come up to me, or I would go up to them, it could be either or, and ask me how to solve those technology problems, their IT problems, whether it's remove a virus of their servers or whatever, fix their wireless networks. These are the things that I had challenges with or I had issues with. But these are also things that people have challenges and issues with. So it's easy for me to look at what already works for me and offer that as a product or service. That is what I've done. For example, you've seen on my other channel was when I created my 5 programs. I have a program on mind mapping. People would ask me, how do you mind map? And so I created a program which sold really well, the mind mapping program. And then people asked me, teach me about entrepreneurship. And although I was offering it in consulting, I created my entrepreneurial program to teach entrepreneurship. People ask me, what about subconscious mind? What about limiting beliefs? Can you talk about that? Sure. I created my subconscious mind program. What about communication? What about productivity? Okay, I created my communication and productivity program. Hey, you've created these programs, Joseph, but be great to have one-on-one support with you. Okay, I have coaching and consulting available. We would like to do it as a group, as a community. Okay, I have my school community. I have Flow-Based Prosperity, my group coaching and mastermind service. Can you speak in our organization, Joe? Yes, I can speak in your organization. Can you speak about a specific topic? Well, do I have experience in that specific topic? Yes, I can speak about it. We can do training on it. We could have it run over the course of months, and I would create custom coaching consulting packages. And again, they could fall in the category of done by you, as in they can just take by home studies and learn how to do it. Done with you, as in we could do it as a hybrid. I could help them with stuff. They can go through my program, and I can help them with stuff. And they might even say, look, can you do it for us? And sometimes I may offer that. And sometimes I may bring someone on who will do it, and I pay them a cut out of the deal. Or I may refer it to a business who does it as a referral. Now, another way I come up with invention or innovation is I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I attend many kinds of meetings, more so back in the days, networking events, mastermind events, presentations where entrepreneurs are talking about their businesses, the various industries that they're involved with. I hang out with other entrepreneurs. I'm out and about, and I see opportunity. I see opportunity to create products and services. Or I may see what another entrepreneur is doing, and I might find that their product or service is not fulfilling a very specific need. Although they're fulfilling other needs, there's another need in that particular niche that is not being fulfilled by this entrepreneur or their business. And I will create a product or service if I want to. I'll create another product or service that will fulfill that particular need. So that falls within the category of invention and innovation. And we can get into all kinds of nuances in relation to this. And then I say sales and marketing. Sales and marketing. So we got innovation thus far. Sales and marketing. I segment it as follows. I segment them. I don't group them together. Under the umbrella of entrepreneurship, yeah, they're grouped together. Yet the reason why I segment them is marketing to me is prospecting and lead generation strategies that are designed to bring people to you. They're designed to fill up your calendar full of sales calls, for example. They're designed to get people to reach out to you via a contact form or DM you or something like that. And if it's done well, they're ready to go. So that's what lead generation does. Prospecting is actively going out. So lead generation, the way I look at it is lead generation is putting videos, running ads, or creating any kind of content, or doing things online or offline, online and offline in combination, you can as well, to bring in qualified leads who are an ideal match for your products and services. And if done well, the sales presentations or the sales calls or the discovery sessions are quite effortless and easeful. This is what I mean by when I made that video the other day. I'll link in the description to it, where I said that, look, I made $1 million just by having conversations. Actually, many millions of dollars just by having conversations. And I'm not the only one. That's what a salesperson does. That's what a person who puts together deals does. They do that. And the way to get better at lead generation is to study direct response marketing and copywriting. Direct response marketing and copywriting. And I also recommend studying consultative sales. Even though typically we might not group that under marketing, why I recommend studying consultative sales is because if you understand sales and you know how to have a conversation with someone that facilitates a close, as in a deal close, then you can reverse engineer, you can connect the dots and see, where do these kinds of people hang out? Where do they hang out, whether it be online, offline, and how can we reach them through prospecting efforts or lead generation efforts? You can look at a broad spectrum, like, oh yeah, they are hanging out on this YouTube channel, or in my comments or whatever. They're hanging out on YouTube, or they could be in particular niches on YouTube, particular communities, not just entrepreneur community. It could be entrepreneur community for those that are interested in building a business in e-commerce, and even more specific, e-commerce specific niches. And maybe you can provide them agency work. Maybe you can provide them some IT services because you have some technology that can help them really well, or some kind of online software that can help them. And that's your ideal client. Well, through knowing consultative sales and putting two and two together, connecting the dots, you can then say, well, this is where my ideal prospects are, and this is how we go about our lead generation and prospecting. Now, I'm being general here because, as mentioned, if we get into all kinds of granulars and nuances, then this video can go on for days, weeks, months. Yet, if you do have any questions, you could leave one in the comments section and we can explore it in an upcoming video. So now, marketing, to me, I segmented as lead generation and prospecting. Let's explore these. Lead generation is, as I mentioned, putting up videos, content, blog posts, any kind of digital assets, content that you create specifically that is designed to have a conversation with people that would be most likely to buy your products and services, your innovation, your inventions. So this can be done through YouTube. That's what I did with my other channel. That is what I do here. And some happen through Instagram as well, and a bit through Facebook. This can be done through running ads. This can be done through TikTok. This can be done through Instagram, both free traffic sources and paid traffic sources. This can be done through Reddit. This can be done through Substack. This can be done through you name it. You name it. Anywhere your ideal prospects would hang out. That's it. And all you're doing is adding to the conversation. Now, I personally recommend watching that video that I did on the 5 stages of awareness, which I learned from the wonderful book, Breakthrough Advertising, which had facilitated millions of dollars for me. The book is written by Eugene Schwartz, and I spoke about the 5 stages of buyer awareness, because why this is helpful is then you can target your posts or content to speak to where the prospect is, where they are in the journey, and also move them along through the journey. But that is meant help them move along and benefit greatly. And if it's beneficial for them, then buy your product or service as well. Because what I found as I did this with my other YouTube channel is, and I've received a number of emails and DMs of this, and I've spoken to people as well, they have become millionaires, and they credit it to a number of videos that I put out, or one video or something like that, because that video really spoke to them. It gave them the insight that they were looking for. So they didn't go and hire me then to help them build their business from 0 to $1 million or 100,000 to $1 million or whatever. And they may never buy anything from me, but some of them did, as I mentioned. Some of them booked consulting with me. Why would they do it? If they already built their business to $1 million, or they already made their first $1 million. Well, they're interested in their second and third. They want to optimize these areas here: innovation, sales, operations, finance, leadership. They perhaps want to get more yield out of their physical assets, digital assets, intangible assets. They want to see how they can combine them with their existing relationships in creative ways to generate more visitors over to their offer pages, offline retail, generate more leads from the visitors, generate more clients from the leads, convert more leads that are qualified into clients, engage in ongoing business with them, which generates more revenues by offering additional products and services or partnering with other businesses to create products or services, or as an affiliate, referring business and then taking a cut out of the deal. Maybe they want that. Maybe they want to optimize the other areas. Maybe they want to look at other kinds of lead generation strategies that I have done or that I've seen businesses do through my many years of experience and implement it. But they don't want to get bogged down with all the different options that are available. They want to see based on, they want to speak with someone who has experience and based on their current scenario, see what is helpful for them. That's why I value long-term relationships. As you know, it's a theme on this channel here. It's not about get-rich-quick scheme and things like that. This is about long-term business relationships, because I can honestly speak from experience. That's how I've done it. Now, lead generation, we got into some nuances there. Prospecting is actively going out to places, actively. So this could be actively online and offline, going to places where your prospects would be. And there could be overlap as well. We'll give an example. But generally speaking, it's actively calling people up on the phone. It's actively emailing people. It's actively going to venues. It's actively going not just to venues offline, like mastermind events, for example, but online groups where your ideal prospects would be. And there's an art to it, because if you do it in a way where it comes off as pushy and needy, then you're going to get thrown out of these groups perhaps. And I've seen that happen with people because they're going over there with a taker attitude. But if they go over there and add value to the group, they benefit people greatly. What I've seen is the likelihood of them meeting their ideal prospects there, building a relationship with them in a way that benefits everyone, and acquiring clients increases. I'll give an example. There's been a number of times where I have been invited to speak at masterminds. I have been invited to speak at particular events where my ideal prospects were. And I was brought in by other entrepreneurs who are also business consultants to add value to the group, to talk about my experiences in particular areas. And then what happened is, after the conversation, and I may have said something in the presentation, if you want to work together, we could do that, but not in an over pushy way. And actually, the individuals that were running the group, they didn't mind that because I wasn't competing with them. And even if, let's say, they were doing the same thing that I was doing, we could work a deal out where we could do it together. So there's all kinds of configurations. And so they were glad that I added value to the group, that I was communicating based on experience, real world value, and people were benefiting greatly. And I was so helpful. I was answering questions, and I was completely fine with answering questions. As a matter of fact, I enjoy answering questions. And I never get tired of answering questions. Even if I hear the same question again and again and again, I still like answering the same question. Because for me, I can come up with different ways of answering the same question. And there are infinite ways. And I don't want to just answer the same question in infinite ways. Why that's helpful is because if you answer the question in one way, it helps the individual. But if you answer it in another way, it might not be helpful. So you get really good at coaching, consulting, training, and facilitation through answering questions. And you also acquire clients. And you also benefit everyone. So I go to these events and I present, I share value, and people afterwards come up to me, or maybe not right afterwards, but they maybe take my email address, phone number, add me on Instagram or something like that, and then check out some more content, and they reach out to me afterwards, and they want to do business with me in some shape or form. Okay, we're going to continue the recording. What happened was the
camera just shut off for whatever the reason may be. So now I want to explore prospecting a little bit more so. Prospecting to me is reaching out to qualified people. I don't personally like to randomly reach out to people or even do very generic forms of prospecting that is not targeted. And what I mean by this is, although you can send out a generic message blanket email to email addresses or whatever that's scraped from the internet, provided that they're targeted, you're going to get responses back. What I also like to do is reach out to people based on the criteria of, as you build your business, as you fulfill on what your clients are looking for, you discover commonalities from your clients. Like, they might hang out in the same kind of places, online and offline. They might go to the same kind of places. And the likelihood of more clients that you're looking for being there is quite high. And so I will reach out to those individuals. And when I reach out to them in prospecting, it is not done in a way that comes off as salesy. I don't recommend it. I just start a conversation with them on a topic that is of interest to them. So if they're in a community, for example, and I see that they're interested in whatever kind of topic and they're talking about it, maybe some nuance point in relation to entrepreneurship or marketing or something like that, I'll comment, I'll have a conversation with them, and if appropriate, I'll DM them about it, and we continue that conversation. Now, what typically ends up happening after that is they ask me what I do, I'll share what I do, and they share what they do, I'll ask what they do, get into more nuances if I didn't know what they did. And even if I did know what they did, I like to get to know them more, genuinely. And then I usually say something like, we can jump on a Zoom call and connect if you'd like, or we can meet up for coffee or something like that. And we'll meet up and we'll talk. And I recommend watching that video that I released on spin selling by Neil Rackham. I'll link in the description to it. It's that one about how I just talk and make money. Well, this is an example of it. During the meeting, whether it be on Zoom, whether it be we were having coffee or something like that, having dinner, whatever, I may just ask these questions, or I just ask these questions. Calibrated. You get better with practice. And then it turns out that the solution that I have, or I have access to a solution, that's actually helpful for them. And then it turns into a business deal. So that's the kind of frame, okay? So the frame is, I'm looking for ideal prospects, and they could be anywhere. They could be online, they could be offline, but generally I find that they tend to hang out in the same kind of locations, whether it be particular social media platforms, online communities, offline communities, actual physical locations like events, seminars, etc. And even breakout sessions at a particular event can get even more nuanced. Like, for example, let's just say they were hanging out at marketing events, or more specifically, social media marketing events. Well, if I go to a social media marketing event and I am a creator of whatever kind of agency, or I have an agency, and I'm offering social media services specifically for those on YouTube, and then one of the speakers there was discussing YouTube, and they have a breakout session. If I go to that breakout session, chances are there are going to be people there that are interested in growing their business through YouTube, especially if it's a marketing seminar that is geared towards those that are interested in applying marketing to grow their business. And it's not a marketing seminar for marketing professionals. Now, if you offered services or you had software or there were opportunities for marketing professionals, and that would be an ideal event to go to that would have your ideal prospects. So you see how I'm being very specific here? And you get this kind of information through connecting with people, which is why I put so much emphasis on relationships. So what I did when I had my IT business, and if I want to increase the numbers, like for example, I have a $5,000 coaching package that I offer, and I have a number of clients. And if I was interested in having more clients, maybe 10 or 15 more this month, what I would do is I would prospect in this way. I would say, okay, the quota is reach out to 5 new prospects every day, 5 new prospects. And that could be going to an event once a week where I meet 5 new prospects at the event, or it could be a mix and match. Maybe I'm reaching out to people on Instagram. Maybe I'm reaching out to people on LinkedIn. Maybe I'm emailing people. Maybe I'm dedicating a bit of time to discover where my ideal prospects would be, what are the upcoming events, schedule them on my calendar, but generally speaking, 5 a day. 5 starting conversations, either walking right up to them, like going to an event and walking right up to them and starting conversations, phone calls, DMs, emails, whatever works, because all of those convert. I've seen all of those convert. The answer is depends. Now, by setting a quota like this, what I have seen is the numbers go up. Why? Because if you do targeting, very highly targeted prospecting, such as the example that I just gave, and you do 5 a day, and you're refining your consultative sales skills, you're implementing, for example, spin selling by Neil Rackham, then it's reasonable to assume that your conversion goes up. A number of those prospects become a client. Now, if they're not, then we got to look at the product, the service, how you package it, how you present it, how it's positioned, the angles, etc. Which we can do that. We can get into that kind of discussion. But generally speaking, if you do 5 prospecting sessions a day, you got products and services that are ready to go. They're what people have bought, are interested in, it's viable. And you go to where the ideal prospects are, and you have these kinds of conversations where they're exploratory. What happens is, just by having these conversations, not only do you acquire clients, but the conversion ratio goes up. Now, this is where lead generation comes in. And you don't necessarily have to do it in this order. Just stream of consciousness is coming out this way for me. So, based on getting to know the prospects, based on getting to know their pains, needs, desires, frustrations, I can now put out content. I can put out ads. I can put various lead generation strategies in place that are built on a solid foundation of research. And this can save a lot of time, energy, and money, and also increase your business. And it makes perfect sense. So you can create content talking to them based on where they are in the 5 stages of awareness. You can run ads to them based on where they are in the 5 stages of awareness. You can test different angles and positions. Also, maybe you're curious about various kinds of angles and positions that you didn't see when you were at the networking events, when you're doing prospecting or just prospecting in general. But you can test it through ads. So you can do all these things. But fundamentally, what I like to do is take my data, my insightful data, not just the data, the insights from the data, and turn that into content, opt-in pages, lead magnets to generate leads. And this can be done in free sources and paid sources, some of which include running ads on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Google, or creating content, search engine optimized content to generate leads, creating YouTube videos, which is what I've done, Instagram posts, which is what I've done, creating TikTok videos, which I have not done, perhaps I might get into that, writing blog posts, which I have done, and then what ends up happening is you generate leads. Generate leads. Now, lead generation and prospecting are one in this way. They're married in this way. By that it is meant that you see how lead generation insights can help you with prospecting, and prospecting insights can help you with lead generation. So sometimes people ask me the question. They say, is it better to do lead generation or is it better to do prospecting? And I say, the answer is it depends. I actually don't consider one better than another because I have gotten benefit from both. I actually like to do them together at an ideal ratio that is natural for me. Now, maybe you lean more to the lead generation side, or maybe you lean more to the prospecting side. And even by leaning more to the prospecting side, I'm talking about prospecting done in a very precise way. And what I mean by this is I've had a number of conversations with entrepreneurs who said that they don't like doing prospecting. They absolutely hate doing prospecting. And so I looked at the way that they were going about prospecting, and the way they were doing it was not natural for them, nor was it as effective as when they changed the way they did their prospecting. By that it is meant they were sending out generic messages. They were reaching out to people on Instagram, etc., with DMs that didn't feel natural. And they were sending a lot of them, and they got very few responses, and maybe once in a while they would get a client that way. So I could see how that could be very stressful, and it could be not fun, simply put, not flow-based. So what we discovered is they are actually very good with people. They just thought, and they learned it somewhere, that by sending these templated messages, their business was going to grow. But for them, it wasn't as effective. And what they're really good at is sending personalized messages. So when they switch their prospecting to looking at the prospect like how you would, like we're having a conversation here, or if you're at a restaurant and you talk to someone, or at a party, whatever, just like that, then it doesn't feel stress, force-based, artificial, canned, etc. And what we found was not only did they start getting clients, now all of a sudden they like doing prospecting. Because the way they thought prospecting works, or the way they thought prospecting should work, or how prospecting is, may be effective for somebody else. Maybe another person likes doing that. But for them, this other way that we just talked about is more effective for them. And so that doesn't mean that they do prospecting all the time, or do 10, 20 prospecting outreaches a day or something like that. They just now have to commit to doing 5 a day. It's done in this way, flow-based way. And they have their lead generating activities, and their lead generating activities are generating clients, and their prospecting activities are generating clients as well. Now, interesting, and why I also like to do mind maps. Well, I like mind mapping for the sense that, for the sake that it helps me organize my thoughts. And even though I'm not mind mapping right now while driving, I'm having this conversation staring at the road, fully focused on the road, and just the cameras beside me recording this, both my video and my audio. Even though I'm not mind mapping now, Mind mapping has helped me communicate in this way where it's very cohesive. It's beneficial in that way as well. But why I like to mind map is it helps me organize and process large volumes of information, which could seem overwhelming or overly complex if an individual does not use a tool like mind mapping to relate it all together in a harmonious way. So, one of the things that I did with my other YouTube channel, I do on this one, and I continue to do on my other YouTube channel, is not only do I share from a mind map, and now I'm going to take this video and then afterwards I'm going to record a mind map. Not only am I able to present with a mind map, which is very helpful, I say at the end of the videos, if you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. So I'm going to say that right now. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. And at what point with my other channel, 25,000 people opted in to that mailing list to get a copy of the mind map. So I gave it in the Xmind format and also in a PDF format. Now, that's lead generation. How easy is it to generate leads? 25,000 people from my channel interested in specific topics that I cover on my channel who like mind mapping, who like this way of thinking, that opted in to get a copy of the mind map. So what happened was when I put out offers, when I did my sales through email, or I said, here, we can book a one-on-one session or something like that, the conversion rates were very high. Very high. I don't know the numbers right now. I'll have to look at it, but they were very high because the lead generation was done effectively. Now, you don't have to be perfect at it. I continuously get better. You know, I'm a lifelong student of direct response marketing, copywriting, and consultative selling. And to be honest, I'm not even as good as many people out there who theoretically know more than I do and also have done way more than I have, practically speaking, or those that may not know the theory as much, but they've performed really well through direct response marketing, consultative selling, and copywriting, just through implementation, because that's what matters, the implementation. And I still did many millions of dollars. So you could see one does not need to be perfect at it. Yet I continue to get better at it. And if I really wanted to, as I mentioned, turn it up, I could throw in some lead generation strategies. I could optimize my email autoresponders. I could put out more offers, etc., and convert more clients, not just for the coaching, but for other products, services, etc. That's why what I'm sharing with you in this video is priceless. It's priceless. Yeah, you can generate millions of dollars by applying what we're talking about here and doing it your style. And there are nuances to this as well. I aim to cover as much as I can. Yeah, you can do that. Yet you can also be free in the financial sense, that anytime you wanted to make more money, generate more income, you have the ability to do so. A lot of the guesswork in entrepreneurship has been dissolved thus far. We've only talked about a few of the categories. We spoke about innovation. Now we spoke about marketing, and we can go on and on and on about marketing, but let's leave it at that. Now let's talk about sales. So to me, great sales is conversation. That's it. Flow-based conversation. To increase the closing ratio on your sales, have good prospecting, have good lead generation, as mentioned, that is targeted, and then jump on a sales call or a meeting with this frame of mind. Ask questions, such as the questions that were provided in the video, Spin Selling by Neil Rackham inspired, and then cross the T's and dot the I's of how your product or service fits what they're looking for. Their pains, needs, desires, and frustrations are solved, and by discussing the benefits they get. If you talk about the features, they might get overwhelmed, but how they would get the benefits, talk about the end results, the benefits they're going to get. Cross the T's and dot the I's. Ask great questions so you don't assume that they're wanting this when they really want something else, or they want what you have, but they're interested in particular nuances of delivery. You might miss that if you're not asking good questions. If you ask good questions and they give you that kind of information, you can then tie it in, and you could do it in a very effortless, fun, joyous, flow-based way. And that's the way I actually recommend it. Because while you're doing sales, like while I do sales, it is not stress and force-based for me. It is not stress and force-based for the other person. It is actually a pleasant conversation that is very focused, but it's not force-based focus. It's lighthearted. And it is moving towards an outcome. The outcome is the close. And the way I like to look at it is like this. If they want to do the deal, great. If they don't want to do the deal, great. Now a person might say, Joseph, what do you mean? Isn't sales about getting more clients? Isn't it about making more money? Absolutely. If you have really good prospecting, really good lead generation, and you have refined your consultative selling ability, you remain in flow, etc., and you're genuinely interested in providing valuable solutions for your clients or your prospects or leads at this point to become clients and deliver on that, they're going to feel that. And if you genuinely love what you do, here's another thing. I don't like to sell anything that I don't love. That's why it's easy for me to sell, actually. They say like your state transfers in sales. It's true, because I absolutely love it. And I absolutely know with certainty that they're going to benefit greatly from it. And they do. And they can feel that. And that helps as well. That facilitates it. So it's what I love to sell, what I know they benefit greatly from. I know I can fulfill on it like 5 stars, first class. And I also know it's what they're looking for, and I can tie their pains, needs, desires, frustrations over to the solution that my product or service, which is just a bridge, delivers. We cross the T's, dot the I's, they're ready to go. Quite effortless, fun, joyous, flow-based. If I follow this, the closing ratios are high. Now, if they don't close, they don't become clients, that's okay. There's optimization data. As I mentioned, you can get better and better and better at direct response marketing, consultative selling, and copywriting. Well, I continuously get better at consultative sales, and I've done thousands of sales calls, presentations, one-on-one groups, etc. Each one of my videos, in a way, is a sales presentation. It's what is called soft selling, because I'm not into the stress, force-based, strong arming, because, look, it's always been effective for me to do it this way. And I also feel easeful about it, so why not? And this is what I teach as well. This is how I teach sales. Now, what happens in sales is if they don't do the deal, that's fine, because I have optimization data on how to improve the various nuances of my products, services. I can come up with additional products and services that they come back later on and buy. They'll come back later on and buy because they had a pleasant experience with me. I've noticed that happening a bunch of times. That's why I say it's great if they don't buy. Another thing is I may have an additional product or service that is in the pipeline ready to go, which is similar to what I just shared, and I might mention it to them, and they will say, you know what, reach out to me when you get that ready. And I did reach out to them, and the deal closed. They already built like and trust with me. They already had a great conversation with me. So another thing that I've seen happen is they have referred people to me. They could have even have looked at it, and I know that's what they're thinking because I've been in the receiving end of this. They might have looked at the sales presentation or the conversation as a form of therapy. as a form of hanging out with a friend, as a good time. That's really good sales. Really good sales is they're having a wonderful time, you're having a wonderful time. And of course, they want their friends and family to have a wonderful time. I used to do network marketing back in the days, and this is how I used to get clients. Just from having a wonderful time. They wanted their friends and family to have a wonderful time as well. It's very powerful. So then they refer people to me that I've seen happen as well, which become clients. So even though they didn't become a client, I've seen people refer people to me who have become clients that end up paying more than what was being offered to the person that didn't want to do the deal. Through the person that they referred to me, I ended up making more money. Another thing that ends up happening is, and this is related to the optimization data, is I can find businesses or I can find offers as an affiliate, as a referral partner, to offer them later on and say, you know what, I realized that this didn't fit what you're looking for, but I did actually find something that would be helpful. Would you be interested in seeing it? And they say, sure, because they're looking for the solution. It's not like they're going to say no to that. They already had a great time with you. They already like you and trust you. It's just they didn't see it was a match, and you weren't trying to force it to be a match, but you did now find something that was a match that they're looking for. Again, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. You make that referral, and one could even say that's a sweeter deal. I did that with IT companies. Why? Because I didn't have to do the fulfillment. I didn't have to do any utilization of my physical assets, digital assets, intangible assets. I didn't have to allocate any team members to it and pay them to do it, but I got a nice affiliate check. And sometimes it was significant. I remember one time I was out with my friend and I got a $900, this was in the earlier stages, I got bigger affiliate checks. But this was the first time I got $900 by just having a 5-minute conversation and just making a referral. Rather than creating something to offer this individual, I made a referral, I made a recommendation. It just so happened that the person that I recommended them to was offering quite substantial 25% on the deal. And I got $900 just from 5 minutes. And we were on a beach, actually. I remember that. We were on a beach. And $900 landed in my PayPal account. So this is what happens when you look at sales from more of a conversational perspective and broader perspective, because all of these things add up. $1,000 here, $10,000 there, $5,000 here, $1,047 training programs, $10,000 consulting deal, one client that pays $100,000, revenue splits, recurring revenue. It adds up to millions of dollars. That's why I'm a fan of multiple streams of income. And as always, we can get into way more nuances when it comes to sales. It's one of my favorite areas, although I love all these areas, but it's generally one of my favorite areas. If you're interested, leave a comment below and we can explore. Now, we talked about innovation, we talked about marketing, we talked about sales. Let's talk about operations. Operations is delivering on the products and services, delivering on it. Whether it be e-commerce, delivery, fulfillment, or if you're taking on coaching, consulting clients, it is onboarding. It is also what goes on within the business. So whatever's going on within the business. It's the operations that's happening in the business. So the workflow, how the projects are managed. And listen, this particular area right here, we can probably talk about for, 5 years. I can make a 5-year-long video, have a 5-year-long live stream on this. Why? Because this is actually my specialty. I did 10 years in corporate IT. It was all about putting IT solutions in place to take care of fulfillment. Fulfillment for the clients and fulfillment for the inner operations. So I group this all under operations. This includes SOPs, standard operating procedures, checklists, what project management software you use, etc., etc. I umbrella this all under operations. one topic that I'd like to get into with respect to operations, and if you have any questions, leave it below. So consider, let's zoom out a bit. I do not neglect any area of entrepreneurship. I value all areas. If your sales comes in, like the faucet is just open and you're getting all kinds of deals, but you're not fulfilling on it in a way that your clients enjoy the experience and they get delivered what was promised, then you probably will get a lot of refunds and bad reviews most likely and stuff like that. And I don't think you want it. You want ongoing lifelong relationships, ideally. It's up to you, but I personally recommend it. So fulfillment is very important. Now, operations might not be what the entrepreneur is interested in as much. Maybe they're just interested in the sales and marketing side, or more so interested in the innovation side, but not so much the operation side. This is why I typically remember, and I did this in a number of business consulting deals, is I encouraged them to bring on an operations manager. When they brought on an operations manager, everything began to flow a lot easier in the fulfillment and operations side, because the operations manager took care of the automation, delegation, more specifically, the facilitation of or organizing of the automation, optimization, delegation, and elimination of the operations side of things. And then the entrepreneur can relax or relax and focus on innovation. Maybe they like the marketing side. Maybe they like to do deal making more so. They're not doing the high ticket sales anymore, but now they're doing bigger deals, which facilitates more sales so they can focus on that. Operations manager takes care of it. If this area is neglected, if you don't bring on an operations manager or you don't take care of it, and you don't have to be perfect at it, and you don't need an operations manager right away, well, the answer depends on the business. We'll have to look at it. But generally speaking, the operations manager is not required right away. If you don't take care of the fulfillment and operations side, and that's where we see a lot of stress in the business. We see stress in the business in the sales and marketing side, yes, if that's neglected. But we also see a lot of stress in the operations side. The ball's dropping here and there. The service level agreements are not being met. Clients are not getting their products on time. Things that were committed to were not being delivered upon. And as mentioned, this is something that I'm very good at, and I lean more towards the automation side. So people always ask me, how do you stay so consistent on the video delivery and showing up to the meetings and everything on time and everything is so organized with you? Well, it is my specialty. It is something that we did a lot with in corporate. As mentioned, it wasn't just the IT, it was also all the other things that I had learned when I was in corporate. It was priceless. The 10 years that I did in corporate, I learned so many things. It was so helpful. I studied project management. You may know about the PMBOK. I don't have a project management professional certification, but I was studying it because I would like to learn a thing or two from how they're doing things. And I learned a lot, actually. I learned more than a thing or two and implemented it. And in my consulting business, a lot of businesses, and I'm still open to it if you're interested, I've put in processes and systems that are quite refined and sophisticated, but not sophisticated in a way to look cool. It's designed to make everything smooth, reduce expenses, increase profitability, everything being consistent. Think of franchises that operate in a very consistent way in their delivery. That's all operations side. So bringing someone on or taking care of it up to a particular degree, or bring on a consultant to put in some systems who knows what they're doing. Because, this is the thing about, if you bring in an IT consultant, they might recommend a system. And that system might be, let's call it overkill for what you're looking for, but it has a high price tag on it. So they benefit from selling you that because there's, a lot of profit there. But that might not be what you're looking for. Do you know how many businesses I went into when I was doing consulting? Well, I'm still doing consulting. Why do I keep saying it that way? Well, that kind of consulting where I was going onto client sites hasn't happened in a while. So that's why I'm saying it. But what I would do is I would take out a lot of technology that was put in place. I'd say you're paying monthly for this and you don't actually use even a fraction of it. And they might say, oh, we're going to eventually use it. you know what? They don't eventually end up using it. They're thinking that they'll eventually end up using it, and it logically may make sense from that kind of logic, but having the experience, it doesn't make sense. By that, it is meant there's new technologies coming out. You know, how many of those companies are probably like, oh, Joseph was right? Well, a bunch of those companies, what happened was they did listen to me, and they put in the stuff that I recommended, and they saved a lot of money, and they made a lot more. And now that AI came in, all that expensive technology that they had, AI is doing it for even a fraction of it. So they're like, yeah, you know, I'm glad we listened to Joseph. And the ones that brought me in just for a consulting call, because there were those that brought me in for just consulting and no guiding of implementation or anything like that. I had mentioned these kinds of things. But, you know, that's the thing about consulting. They may or may not implement these things. I'm not going to force them to implement it. I'm going to speak from experience like I'm doing right now. I'm not going to force you to implement these things. I'm going to speak from experience. Yet, they didn't implement some of these things, and they were paying for many years for whatever kind of software, and then now AI does it for free. So that's okay. No shame, no condemnation, as I always say. That's part of entrepreneurship. Look, why I started offering consulting was because I started to see all these opportunities. To go back to what I mentioned in the beginning, I started to see all these opportunities that were there to help businesses so that they wouldn't go through the same kind of stuff that I went through, that they could just learn from my experience and fast track. They wouldn't need to go through all the things that I had seen my IT clients go through when I was in corporate, the things that, you know, why do corporations have such refined systems at a particular point? It's because they had gone through the various phases that many entrepreneurs go through, but we can learn a thing or two about how they do things. It doesn't mean you need to put a full corporate structure in place. See, at a particular point, you bring in the MBAs, and just like I brought it up earlier about the operations manager, at a particular point, you bring them in. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe it's not the right time. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna provide this service. I'm gonna be there as someone that they could, you know, Jay Abraham refers to this as trusted advisor. So I could be the trusted advisor, and not based on, okay, all these books that I read and all this conjecture, real lived experience. And I read a lot of books as well. But even those books, how I applied that information, the way I applied it, and the way I seen businesses apply it through all my exposure, that is what you pay a consultant for. And that's why some consultants, like management consultants, for example, they make a lot of money. You know, I sat in on a consulting deal. It wasn't my consulting deal, but this particular consultant charged $100,000 for the consulting session for one day. And I got to sit in on that. I got to listen in on what was going on. And some people might say, how the heck does a person charge $100,000? Why would anyone pay $100,000 for a consultant for one day? Well, consider this. That business was doing many millions of dollars, and by applying what that consultant said, they made more. So the return on that is, you know, let's say the consultant provides some optimization and it saves them $500,000. Is it worth $100,000 to save them $500,000 in the first year, first 2 years, and then compound accordingly? Or made them an extra $500,000 or $1 million? Absolutely, it's worth it. How often do you come across returns on investments like that, even in some of the more lucrative investments that promise high returns? So we see, you know, this is the investor way of thinking, which leads me to my next point. So we touched on operations. Let's talk about finance. Now, in 2004, I read Think and Grow Rich, and my relationship with money changed. From there, I created a finance spreadsheet to budget everything. Then I started to get into the budgeting of our department in corporate, and I started to hang out with the accountants in corporate, and I would have all kinds of conversations about money. I would watch videos about it, I would read books about it, I would study, and all of a sudden, I just got so fascinated with numbers in business. Now that's me personally. That might not be your thing, but this is my thing. And even then, when I talk to some of these accountants and, even my accountant, she'll just blow my mind with all these possibilities. I was like, you know what? There's so many of these things. Ideally, I would do all of them, what she said, but I don't. That just goes to prove the point. Like we're talking about, there's no limit to how far you can take it in one of these categories. There's no limit to how far you can refine your sales and marketing. There's no limit to innovation and invention. There's no limit to how refined you can have your operations. Look at Amazon, for example. They're constantly refining their fulfillment process. In logistics, it's constant refinement. Normal, completely normal. There's no limit. Same with finance. But I personally recommend have some good foundational understanding. I'm going to link in the description to a video that I made about retirement calculator, even though I don't consider it retirement in a way that people might think. I'll just call it that, or you call it financial freedom calculator. Actually, let's call it that, financial freedom calculator. I'll link in the description to that video where we discuss it. So you can plan accordingly. And then, you know what? Invest a bit of time here and there, improving your financial literacy, and you'll know some of these things that right now I talk about, like, I can just keep talking about it. This is another one of these areas where I can just keep talking about. And I'm not going to dish out any financial advice and how to go about doing it, because that would require a financial planner, and that wouldn't keep into consideration some of the regulations. So we won't go there. But where we will go is some recommendations of having people on your team that can take care of that area for you. It's not being neglected. And I have seen some things in some businesses that you don't want to see. You don't want to be involved with these kinds of things. I can assure you, you don't want to be involved with these kinds of things that they went through because their accountant was not doing things in a proper way, if you know what I mean. So finding a good team, learning it yourself, keeping your finger on the pulse, bird's eye view so you know what's going on, is very helpful. And I recommend having a budget spreadsheet to start mapping out your financial future. And personally, I also recommend not getting involved with any kind of get-rich-quick schemes and things like that, okay? The way I did it personally is I generate a lavish, steady, dependable income, and that income increases because the income potential as an entrepreneur, provided that you succeed as an entrepreneur, and you succeed as an entrepreneur by implementing, doing the right things that successful entrepreneurs have done. What happens is you increase how much money you take home, how much your business takes home, and that gives you a lot more capital to invest. And you don't even need that high of a return on investment. And there's plenty of investment vehicles that will give you even a modest return on investment that not only beats inflation, but has a good compounding rate. And just through the law of compounding interest, you can do very well. And I also recommend having an ideal lifestyle along the way. Have a wonderful time. So throughout my entrepreneurial career and continuing, I have wonderful experiences, wonderful time, flow-based prosperity. We do meetups and hangouts. I've done all kinds of cool things like parties. I've been invited to mastermind parties, some of them more elaborate. I've lived in different countries in the world, all kinds of fun things. And, again, speaking about this from the finance side, what happens is a bunch of this, you got to speak to your accountant. And I recommend keeping within the tax laws. You can expense it. You can write it off. And you can also have a wonderful lifestyle. Look, if I go to California on a business trip, I was there for 2 years on a TN visa. I got to write off the car rentals from Turo. I rented a Porsche at one time. I also got to write off my meals, the places I was staying, the entertainment. I'm having a wonderful time. And I'm doing business. How great is that? lavish, steady, dependable income, consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, increasing, wonderful lifestyle while you're doing that, and then putting some money aside, ideally more aside, and letting that compound to the point where the returns that you get on investment, the dividends, the passive income that they call passive income, but that's a nuanced point, because is it really completely passive if you own a property? Do you not deal with things here and there? But anyways, we'll say more on the passive side can be greater than the money you're taking home on your business. And that's a great place to be. Then you can say, you know what? I don't want to do this business anymore. I want to sell it. I want to sell the assets. If you set it up in a way and you put the SOPs in place and other things, which we could get into that if you'd like, you could sell the business. And, I sold some of my IT clients, and a bunch of them I transitioned in a different way through referral splits. I didn't know what I know now back then. I would have done it way differently. I would have set up my business with SOPs and had the clients on particular managed services, contracts, etc., consistent. And then the company that took over a number of my clients, I would have probably just said, cut me a check for all these clients. And I'm sure they would have done it. That is how IT companies or agencies, that's what they're looking for, in essence, is they require, if they're looking to do this, mergers and acquisitions and just essentially taking over assets and businesses, they're essentially buying all the work that you've done. So it's a great deal. So even though they'll pay you whatever, $1 million, $2 million more for the company, a person might think, why would they pay all that? Well, they're paying for the brand reputation, they're paying for the clients, they're paying for the system, they're paying for the assets, and they take that, they optimize it, they get more yield from the clients, they make that money back, their business valuation grows up, and maybe they sell their business for more, a bunch of things like that. So that's why getting your finance on track is also helpful, because if you're going to sell your business, also it's important to have your financial track record organized, because they're going to want to look at that. They want to look at the numbers and determine what the business is worth. So these are just some of the benefits. There are many more. Finance side. All right, we spoke about innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance. Let's talk about leadership. Leadership is you being a leader. So to me, that's showing up for commitments, remaining in flow, praising your team, helping your team grow, being the one that's consistent, so that consistency is the theme of the organization, and all kinds of nuances. I mean, we can get into all kinds of nuances with this as well. But essentially, with leadership, let's just choose the one that to me is the highest, which is you go first. You go first. If I'm going to suggest to anyone in the team to implement something or do something, or if I'm going to say, this is how I would like my organization to be, the way I do it is I go first. I'm not waiting for anyone to do it first. I do it. I do it, and I do it consistently. And what I've seen is people do it, and they do it consistently. Their version of it, but that's the theme. That's the theme, consistently. They show up. If you love what you do, they love what they do. You attract the people that love what they do. If you show up and you're consistent, they are consistent. So what happens then is you'll just naturally attract those people. I show up on time for meetings. I commit to action items. I ensure that meetings, there's action items after the meetings. And some meetings don't have action items. If they're just brainstorming session, that's fine. But if we got a deal going forth, I want to ensure that there's good project management, really good, ideally optimal project management. The tasks are assigned, even if I don't do it. But the way we remain consistent as a team in there is that I deliver. I deliver. And what I've noticed in my life, and I've met many great leaders, is that I was like this around them. The great leaders that I met when I was in corporate, business leaders, joint venture partners, the people that I dealt with, I noticed that they were like this and they brought out the best in me. One way of looking at it is it felt easy. It felt easy to be led because we're all leaders. We're all leaders essentially. So we go first, they go, and it appears like we all go at the same time. So that's a key point when it comes to leadership. Now, another thing about leadership is answering questions. To me, a great leader can answer the question and get into whatever kind of level of abstraction required, whether it be very granular or very abstract. They're able to answer it in a more esoteric way if that's required, and in a very granular way if that's required, which is why I teach entrepreneurship this way, which is why I facilitate entrepreneurship this way, because I find that everything fits in the categories of innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, leadership. And then as everything fits in these categories nicely, when I'm growing a business, anything that I get involved with, when I'm joint venturing, when I'm partnering, when I'm involved with a business as a consultant, when I am training entrepreneurs, developing entrepreneurs, we go in like this, like what we're talking about here. And depending on their business model, depending on their industry, depending on their niche, depending on their style of entrepreneurship too, how they like to communicate, the verbiage, etc., we'll adjust it accordingly in a way that fits perfectly for them within the scope of the model. Again, the model is innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, leadership. None of these areas are neglected. And depending on what's going on, we may lean more resources in one area. We may lean more physical, digital assets or less or whatever. We may adjust accordingly. Bring more people on, cultivate the skills in the organizations, etc., to continuously grow the business, to continuously grow this. Now, my way of articulating this and so much nuances, I wasn't able to do this back in 2013 when I started consulting and also when I started my YouTube channel. Even though I knew these things from building my IT business to success and also my 10 years in corporate up to a certain degree, just through the repetition of being an entrepreneur for 16 years and going and looking at things through the lens of this, not just in what I was involved with, but the various businesses that my clients, people that I've spoken to, are involved with as well. I can flow in conversation like this, and you can see it's very cohesive. And we can get granular, we can get abstract, whatever you'd like. And if you would like to, bring me on for one-on-one, or bring me into your organization, or do an event or something like that, we could talk. You could go to the description, there's a contact form, you can fill that out, and then we'll be in touch. If you would like to be part of one of my communities, we've got the school community, we've got Flow-Based Prosperity, my group coaching and mastermind service. I even have one-on-one coaching and consulting available. I got my 5 programs. I'll link to all of that in the description. So I trust you enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you very much for joining me on this drive on Christmas Eve to go hang out with my mom and my sister. Also note that this video is not released on Christmas Eve. It was recorded on Christmas Eve. It's recorded and then released the following week. If you would like a copy of the mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.